I'm at the National Press Club in Washington, D.C., where the brother and father of WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange, Gabriel and John Shipton, have wrapped up a multi-week, 13-city tour of the United States, where they've aimed to raise awareness about Julian's case and demand he not be extradited to the United States.
Julian has now spent, moving to the 12th and 13th year of arbitrary detention. Arbitrary detention declared by the United Nations Working Group on Arbitrary Detention. Experts on psychological torture published the report that Julian had undergone years of psychological torture, mobbing, calumnies, lies, smears.
John Shipton, father of Julian Assange, you were just sharing a story about something he went through while in prison over the last few months. During this event at the National Press Club, you discussed the pain that he's gone through as a father in detention. I'm wondering if you could repeat that story for our viewers, because I think it really highlights his plight.
The first visit in a number of months, because the jail is in COVID lockdown, Julian's two children came in. Max is a little boy with their mum. The guards insisted that they search the mouth of the little boy and began to apply force, and the child went into a meltdown and started to cry. If Julian had got up and defended his child, there would have been a pile on, what they call a pile on. 6 guards would have come over and pressed him to the ground and handcuffed him and dragged him away in an intimidatory fashion. So Julian has to sit there and see his child insulted. This sort of intimidation and oppression is a constant in maximum security circumstances. Belmarsh is being a maximum security jail.
And they threatened him with further isolation as well, correct?
In another visit, some months preceding that, Julian had to dress in full PPE. There's a bitter irony, because he's 23 hours a day in his cell as it is. So in full PPE, the children come in, and the children's mum and his partner Stella. The guards warn Julian that if the children run to embrace him, or Stella embraces him, Julian will have to spend 23 hours of jail in isolation for 2 weeks. Well, he's been in isolation now for coming on 3 years.
And I just wanted to highlight that because at the Grayzone, at least, we talk a lot about the implications for press freedom. But I think for the average person, the average citizen sitting at home in the United States, to hear the story of how a father suffers, the way Julian and the rights of his children are being violated on such a personal level, I think it's important for people to understand. So thank you for sharing that with us, John.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
It is about the Chelsea Manning leaks and the publication of those leaks. And it's about explaining to people that that's what it's about. It's not about, that's what Julian's been prosecuted for. That's what this dangerous precedent is being set, is about those leaks. It's not about anything else. And I think this is a real problem, that people feel that they can, excuse this prosecution that is the first of its kind against a publisher, because they might disagree with, or have a disagreement with that person. So I think it's really important to talk to these people and say, this is the first time that this has ever been done to a publisher, and how it affects people not just here but around the world.
Gabriel Shipton, brother of Julian Assange, tell me, how is your tour? You were in 13 cities during this trip, right, across the United States. How were you greeted by local organizers? How was this trip made possible?
It's been incredible. John and I have literally spoken in front of thousands of people across the country over the past month. A lot of people coming at it to this different way. A lot of anti-war people, technologists who are interested in free internet, people from libertarian bent who are more interested in First Amendment and things like that. So everyone sort of approaches this case in a different way, but they're all united that this prosecution is it's a danger to a free press and the First Amendment.
And what about the media interest?
Well, really it's the independent media that has paid us a lot of attention. We have got some mainstream media here and there, but it's really the independent media that has jumped on board and wanted to hear our story, basically.
What is the experience like for you and your father as Australians being in the United States, a country that is prosecuting your brother, also an Australian citizen, for violating U.S. laws?
Well, it's pretty surreal. I guess John and I have a bit of a laugh at the end of most days about just the irony that we're two Australians in the US trying to convince people to stand up for their rights. It's a bit surreal in that way. As to the extraterritorial stuff, we don't really talk about that here because the US is, it's so exceptional. It has this.
It's the empire.
It has this reach. Its tentacles reach everywhere. So. It's not just Julian who's in trouble. There are literally hundreds of people who have been trying to be plucked out of their country. Especially, it's gotten so much worse after 9/11, obviously, where all these extradition treaties were negotiated around the world, and now they're being turned against people like Julian or business people or foreign people from other governments like Venezuela and so on.
You're referencing the case of Alex Saab, which is something else that we've covered at the Grayzone, a diplomat literally kidnapped by the United States. Absolutely surreal. Gabriel Shipton, thanks so much.
Thank you.
When it comes to courage, when it comes to the willingness to expose lies and crimes, I am in deep solidarity with my dear brother Julian.
Dr. West, it's a pleasure. I don't know if you remember, but actually the first time we met, I was here covering an event you did to deliver a letter to the White House in support of Jeffrey Sterling, a whistleblower, locked up. It was a while back, and he's free now.
He is free now, isn't he?
But in covering the Assange trial, I thought about how the fact that the judge in the United Kingdom refused the extradition request based on the possibility that Assange could face torture in the United States. And I think about what Jeffrey went to when he was denied medical care. What do you think about the significance of that specifically being the reason Judge Baratzer would not send Julian to the United States?
Yeah, I think the judge didn't want to confront the fundamental truth that it's an issue of press freedom. It's an issue of Julian and other journalists being able to lay bare a truth. And so on the one hand, it could be positive because it means, in fact, that at least we have some possibility of him being treated more humanely. But in terms of principle, it's still far removed from what we want. And the very fact that we're able to put it in the context of how do we keep alive issues of integrity, honesty, decency, let alone substantive democracy in the face of the lies and crimes of the American empire become very, very important. Very important.
You drove all the way from New York just to be here today, and you're driving back tonight?
Back, indeed. But this was worth every second of the way.
Julian's case is that important. Thank you, Dr. West.